As entrepreneurs, we want to reach out there and find the right clients, the prospective clients and customers, and have them be attracted to us. And there's all kinds of marketing mediums out there. And, many of us have used things and some have worked better than others. Well, you are very fortunate today. I have a remarkable fellow entrepreneur who is a direct mail and really slash marketing expert. And he's here to guide us through how we can use the marketing of today to really accelerate our success, attract the right steady stream of pre-qualified, pre-endorsed customers or clients. I mean, what more can you ask for? You do not want to miss this. Stay tuned. I'm John Bowen, and we're at AES Nation, all about accelerating your success.
Ordinary success? No way. You want amazing, remarkable, exceptional breakthroughs. Dig deep, think bold, drive hard, watch yourself soar beyond your dreams. AESNation.com.
Craig, I am so excited to have you here today. You are one of the top people in really direct response, and we met at Genius Network, Joe Polish's 25K, and everybody turned to you. You're one of those quiet guys that everybody just turned to get the answers. So I want to get the answers today, but first of all, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be a part of this interview today.
Well, Craig, there's so many questions I have on what you do, but I want to, being a direct response person, you didn't wake up at age 10 and say, I'm going to be the top guy mailing all kinds of different things, helping so many businesses be successful. How did you get where you are today? Before we get all the answer stuff, I want them to have a little bit of your background.
Sure. And I got started in direct mail marketing in a really odd way. And I think the only way to get into a direct mail business is going to be in an odd way. I mean, it's not like you just wake up, like you said, and say, oh, I'm going to do direct mail today. When I was 18 or 19 years old, I had built this 20-foot high rock climbing wall in my parents' backyard. And I'd spent all my money on the materials, the wood, the steel. And I didn't have any money left to put the actual rock climbing holds to buy those and put them on the wall. And so I decided to make them myself. And so I made all these fake rocks. And I bolted them on my wall, and I had my buddies come over and climb on it. And everybody loved it. And they said, you should start selling these things. So I went into business selling these fake rocks. And one of the first things I did was I had heard about this media direct mail. And so I wrote a letter and I mailed it out to about 175 people. And I sat by the phone and I thought, man, this thing's going to kill it. And I waited for the phone to ring, and I waited and I waited, and it didn't ring at all. Nobody called for my first campaign. It's a complete flop. But I didn't give up, and I kept testing. And I eventually sold over 4,000 rocks through the mail. And so I fell in love with the marketing, and I would love it when the phone would ring, and I would love it even more when I would take a credit card number and I'd process the order. But then I'd have to go out to my sweatshop, and I had to make these fake rocks, which I hated. So I got out of the manufacturing business, and I went to work for a large publisher doing direct mail. So that was kind of my start, was selling fake rocks, got me started in the direct mail business.
It's a great start. And it's funny, we all have different ways that we kind of find our way into being entrepreneurs. And that the test of fire, and there's nothing like doing a marketing campaign and, waiting for the phone to ring and nothing happens. All of us as fellow entrepreneurs can relate to that. But I want to go to some of the lessons. You and I were talking about the lessons you learned, and this is why I wanted to have you on the AES Nation podcast, Craig. And, one of the things that, you talk about in, all the work you do with clients and presentations you're making is marketing is a science. And, I know when I first started, I can still remember some of my earliest marketing classes, I felt like you're just checking the direction of the wind. I grew up in the financial services, we're all number based, and for the most part, totally ignored it on the marketing. We just for a relationship. And tell us how things are evolving and changing now, and why you think marketing is such a science and not an art.
Sure. And yeah, I mean, I think, starting out, my idea was the most beautiful ad or the most elaborate looking, elegant looking sales piece. But what you find out is some of those things don't always work out. There's a reason why a certain style works better to one group versus another. And there's a whole science behind marketing, whether you're marketing to men versus women. There's certain color schemes that's going to be more responsive to a man than to a woman, and vice versa. There's also the characteristics that go into who you're marketing to, the age, the income, the hobbies, the interest. And all this information builds up into really a science. And if you do these three things in this order, you have a better chance of getting a response versus just throwing kind of spaghetti on the wall and hoping this works, right? So I'm a firm believer, and from what I've seen from tracking thousands of mail campaigns, that putting the science into it and really strategizing and coming up with the right concepts and the right lists and copy and design all goes together, giving you the best chance for success.
No, well, and you should know, because one of the interesting tidbits about Craig is Craig does more campaigns. On average, I think it's about 300 totally different campaigns a year in all kinds of different niches and industries and that. And that's, I believe, more than anyone else out there. So, it's just a huge, learned lessons on this. And when we look at the demographics and the psychographics, Craig, I'm always interested. I mean, the thing that I've found is how little changes can make a huge difference, once you better understand the audience.
Yeah, and it could be as simple as a color change. We find that if we're going to women, that if we use a turquoise and a pinkish color, or we're going to have a better response than if we use a blue or a brown. Now, you can mail the exact same piece, the exact same copy, the exact same design, and just change the colors, and response rate's going to change. We found through testing that the photo makes a big difference. One of my clients we were mailing millions of pieces for, and we tried him in a suit, we tried him in a cowboy hat, we tried him in a baseball cap. We found after testing dozens of photos that a denim shirt with a cowboy hat was the one that gave us the highest response rate. It's just, and science told us that by studying and researching and testing, we use that information to say, wow, this is what works best. Even though we thought maybe a suit and tie would work better, it didn't. It was the cowboy hat and the denim shirt.
I'll tell you, this is one for all our fellow entrepreneurs. This is a big deal because, as I mentioned, I grew up in the financial services industry professionally, and we really, we do now, but we didn't then do all the testing, and now I am a huge believer in it, and just the ability to test everything with today's technology is just so available. There's no excuse not treating marketing as a science, and the incremental changes. I've had things that I've changed that have made as much as an 80% increase in return on investment, Craig, and there was really no additional cost in doing it. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's surprising how little change can have a significant impact on a sales letter or any kind of marketing campaign.
Well, one of the things you talk about, and this is something that I think is very important because it's a mistake I made. And I can remember hiring when I was some top marketing consultants, and they were getting me so excited and everything else. And I'm going to swing for the home run. We're going to have this big success, and there's nothing worse than putting a lot of time, energy, and money in a campaign, and kind of like your first letter for the Rocks, it didn't land, and help out our fellow entrepreneurs, because the temptation is to swing for the fence. But how should we think about marketing?
Yeah, I feel like you can always improve upon a campaign. You can always make something better. And so when I first started, I was swinging for the fence every time. I wanted a home run. And I got really discouraged when I wasn't able to do that constantly. But what I quickly realized is that a base hit was really the next step towards a home run, right? It got me on the plates. I could start running the bases here. It gave me a chance to do something more and greater. And it was that getting going and then making it better, testing something else. Maybe it's the different colors of the sales letter. Maybe it's a different photo, maybe a different headline. But by making changes, we can make the mail pieces even better and better and better. And so it wasn't like we had to hit a home run the first time. We just had to get going. It's a starting point. And I've always learned it's easy to make a piece better. It's tough to get the perfect sales piece or any kind of marketing campaign right out of the gate, to do it right off the bat. And I think a lot of people have the temptation to say, well, I'm going to work on this marketing campaign over and over again, and they never really get anything out the door because they want the perfect one. And then when it's not perfect, they're discouraged and like, okay, I'm done with this. But really, you just need to get something out there and say, okay, we've done something really good here. Let's try it out. Now, once you see a response, you can make it better. Let's tweak some things and test some things.
I'm going to give a little personal thing, Craig, because this was a big one to me. I went ahead and I listened to some of the, really one very top consultant convinced me to, I had the idea and put about $100,000 in it to just run the first test. And, we're going to go big. And I think I generated something like 15,000 of revenue, not profit, revenue, and it was one of those kind of it was pretty devastating because it was my first kind of doing this more marketing as a science, and today having stuck with it, scaled down, began testing more incrementally, that's responsible for almost 3 million of revenue. And with a very high profit margin too. And it would have been so easy. I made that big mistake trying for the home run in the beginning. It took us probably 9 months to get it to work. But once it worked really well. So, I'm a big believer in base hits, mainly because I'm not a good home run swinger, I found out.
Right.
Well, let's go a little bit further. Marketing's so much fun, and when it's working, and when it's not, it's not. And and it's only part of the business. And a line I first heard from Michael Gerber, we were talking about working in the business. Michael Gerber, wrote the book, very famous. Wall Street Journal said, I think it was the #1 or certainly in the top 10 books, E-Myth Revisited, and a great book for all small business because he talks about systems. But he talks about, working in the business versus on the business. And most of us are working in the business. We're chugging along, doing our stuff. And one of the things that you do, and you do very well, is you work on the business. So, how do you, separate those two? And then how do you go ahead and, make sure that you're putting the right investment in each category?
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's really, when I started out, I was like most entrepreneurs, and I was just working in the business, and I thought that was the answer. And then I quickly realized that, boy, I can't grow unless I work on the business. And so what I had to do is start dedicating time, and saying, okay, for these hours, this section during the day, this is going to be the section where I work in the business. And then I've got a good chunk of time over here that's going to be working on the business. And I had to be very rigid and stick to that, or else if you don't do that, then you're just going to keep working in the business, and you'll be busy all the time, but you're not going to grow necessarily. You're just going to be spinning your wheels. And so I really had to separate my weeks out into what would be working on the business versus working in the business.
Well, and that's really why we met. I mean, we were both working on the business. I mean, we paid somebody, Joe Polish, $25K to bring us together, and I spent about $100,000 a year going to these kind of meetings. Not because I need more friends or anything like that, but what I want to do is see what, like yourself, what fellow entrepreneurs who are having real success are doing, and, learn from that. And also, the connections in business, that's what brought us together. And, and you're doing the same thing. Have you found that to be very valuable?
Oh, super valuable. I mean, I've been in mastermind groups for, I don't know, 5 years now, plus, going to marketing meetings, 3 or 4 different meetings every year and have been doing it for many years. And so, yeah, I feel like that's a huge part of it. And just connecting with other entrepreneurs and seeing what they're doing. And there's always something you can learn, right? There's always somebody in the room who's doing something new or different. And I just gain so much information by watching others and how they do it and how can I do things better. And I think that it's invaluable to be able to spend that kind of time.
Well, let's go the other part. We were talking about working on the business, and one of the things that you do, I know, is you're great at time management and that segmentation, because we do have to work in the business a bit
Sure.
too, and then on the business. How do you go about segmenting it, and the various roles that you have in leading your organization?
Right. Well, for one of the things I do is, like I schedule my phone calls out. I schedule all my calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I try and be very rigid with that. And so that I can have the other days of the week to work on projects, whether it's in the business or on the business. But I try and get all my phone calls lined up in a couple days. I think that's something that's been big, that's a big help. For my team, we have a weekly marketing meeting. We have it every Wednesday morning. We have a set time for it. We go through projects. We try not to have a ton of meetings throughout the week. We try and keep everything to that one meeting. We don't want to have meetings to have meetings. We want to have a purpose behind them. So we're very intent on the things we do and how we schedule our days.
Well, and this is so important for all of us. I mean, if we want, as Craig, to be successful on purpose, then it's organizing our day, with great intent, with clarity of purpose. What are the most important things for us? And, so often, we leave our calendars open. And I can remember at one time I had another business where we had about 400 employees. It was like, there's a steady stream, always coming. And it was almost impossible, until I made that decision that, we'd create structure around that, because otherwise, you just leave everything to chance, and so many missed opportunities
and wasted time.
Yeah. I mean, what do you mean by wasted time?
So I had, before I did, for the last 10 years, I've been doing the freelance direct mail consultant and coach thing. Prior to that, I worked for a large publishing company, and for 11 years, and we'd have meetings to prep for other meetings. And, it was ridiculous. We'd have to get meeting notes out and have agenda for the pre-meeting that would come for the meeting that was later in the day. There were seriously days during the week where we would spend, 6 hours of the day in meetings, and that meant nothing got done. And then we would have, those twice a week. It was like, boy, a third of our time, or 25% of our time, is spent in meetings about meetings. Well, when I left the corporate world and I went to work for myself, I couldn't believe how much extra time I had because I wasn't in meetings. And the meetings were so much of a waste of time. And I talk to business owners all the time who have that same experience.
Meetings can be very productive.
Sure.
But we have way too many of them, and they're not well organized. I mean, I found the same thing when all of a sudden I have a number of businesses, but they're virtual businesses. So global headquarters is my pool house. I've got about 40 core people working with me, but nobody else is here. And, and we have very structured days. I mean, I'm amazed. And, and we're doing pretty large scale businesses. And, several $1 million in multiple businesses. And it's amazing I actually feel a little embarrassed sometimes, Craig. I don't know if you feel this, that there's a lot of free time when you're not doing 6 hours of non-productive meetings.
Yeah, really. If I'm going to have a meeting, I want a purpose and I want a time frame. How long is it going to take? And what's the purpose of it, so that we all go into it, we know what we're going to get. And I learned that lesson from a marketing guy. I was meeting with Dan Kennedy for my first time, and at the end of a 20-minute pre-scheduled meeting, I was expecting we'd go over a little bit, and he said, "I'm sorry, it's time for you to go. Our meeting is up." And I was mid-sentence, but it was right on the dot. It was time to go, and I learned from that point on, whenever I met with him, there was a hard stop time. I had to be done. And I've carried that through, just thinking that's a really great model, in the sense that There's no wasted time there.
Yeah, and not everybody knows who Dan is.
Okay.
Craig, who is Dan Kennedy?
So Dan Kennedy, I mean, he's one of the largest information marketing experts in the country. He's one of the largest direct response marketing experts in the country. He's written like 18 different marketing books. When it comes to direct response marketing, he's probably the most widely published author right now living. And he's got a huge following. He's very rigid. He's got a very structured system about him, and it works for a lot of businesses.
And extremely talented individual, but I have no doubt him shutting you down at the right time too.
Right in the middle of the sentence, but I learned from it.
No, that's great. Let's go. We haven't talked about it. I alluded to something that really I wanted to get together, and I wanted to know you more, because as I'm experimenting with direct mail more and more, we're getting great results. And I mean, I've had so many people from the internet, kind of the marketing side, the information marketing side, tell me that direct mail is dead, don't waste your money. And you and Brian Kurtz, formerly from Boardroom, are the two guys who are telling me, John, this is phenomenal, and now I'm finally believing you. So maybe help our other entrepreneurs kind of catch up to speed with what's going on in this dead art that you lead.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you the first thing, I love direct mail. I'm passionate about it. So, this may be a time where you have to cut me off, because I could go on and on for this. But, what people don't know is they think that it's this kind of old dinosaur business that's gone away, right? That nobody's using it anymore. But the reality is it's a $46 billion a year business, and that's for advertising mail only. That doesn't include your bills and the normal correspondence. There's $46 billion a year spent in direct mail advertising. And if you were to evaluate and look at the top, 500 businesses in the country, the majority of them, 95 to 98%, are all actively using direct mail. And one of the stories I like to talk about is Google, because Google's this massive online giant, and they aggressively use direct mail to get people to use their AdWords program. And a few years ago, 2 years ago, there was a study done on the top mailers in the United States, and Google was the 8th largest technology mailer in the country. Now they're up there with AT&T, Verizon, Dell Computers. I mean, those are all big names, right, that we know and would expect to use direct mail. Well, Google was the 8th largest technology mailer in the country. And
let me just stop for a second there, Craig, because I think I knew I'm in Silicon Valley. I get direct mail from Google. I used to get more. I get some now, but I remember when they really flooded it too. And to have them be the 8th largest, and when you think about that, their incremental cost of using Google AdWords, I'm going to think it's pretty low. So,
Sure.
They have the ability to use all their digital network and their search and everything else, and they're still the 8th largest direct mail. I mean, this is for all of us as entrepreneurs. I know I'm now mailing in the just under 100,000 pieces a month, and I can see it going up pretty dramatically. And the response, the reason why people do this stuff, Craig, is it works because we're using the science, and when you measure the return, it's working. But that's a big number.
It's huge, and I've talked to the guy who ran the campaign at Google, and he told me firsthand we were mailing millions of pieces every quarter. And it's, a lot of the offer was giving away $100 free AdWords. You can go sign up today, get $100 worth of free AdWords. So they're using physical, tangible mail to get somebody to use their online marketing program. So it's a little bit comical to me too. But so, I think that's a great example, is if they're able to use direct mail, and I'm able to sell fake rocks to the mail, and there's $46 billion a year being spent on direct mail. there's some opportunities there. It's just not the shiny object right now that everyone talks about, but it's still a very viable media out there that's growing by 5% every year.
Well, Craig, how do, if you're thinking about it, as an entrepreneur, one of the things that I struggled when I looked at direct mail, I'm going, I can do it over email. There's, incremental cost is relatively low. the variable costs once I do the creative material and so on. And I'm going, geez, I can go ahead and use that, and that's going to be maybe not as effective, but the incremental costs, and I can be a little sloppy on the whole thing. And how do you help? And I hear that all the time in my industry and in other industries. In the mastermind groups we're in, they all kind of play lip service, but they don't understand direct mail, and they don't understand how to test its applicability in their industry or niche.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, there's a more cost, there's a higher cost to it. But what I'll tell you from numerous tests is that you get what you pay for. You get a more qualified buyer that's going to come back. I did a test where I took 50,000 direct mail buyers, 50,000 online buyers, and 50,000 TV buyers. They all bought the same product within an 18-month period of time, all paying the same price. So the only difference between these people is what media they bought through, online TV versus direct mail. Mm-hmm. And what we found is when we looked at the lifetime value of the customers, those who bought on TV spent twice as much as those that bought online. And then those who bought with direct mail spent 2 to 3 times as much as those who bought from the TV. So the direct mail buyer, even though it costs more to acquire, spent significantly more on the back end buying other products and services. And that was a big test. I mean, 150,000 people that we looked at. And I've done it in smaller scale. I've done it in a variety of different niches. And I always find that those who are acquired through direct mail are your best buyers. So there is more cost to getting into the mail, but you get what you pay for. You're going to get a more qualified prospect or buyer out of the marketing campaign.
For so many of us, the lifetime value of a client is significant, and that client acquisition we're talking about, if we can get that science, that steady stream of pre-qualified, sure, pre-endorsed clients, it's amazing. I want to go to the next segment because you provide a lot of information in this, and it's the book of the day. And what I'd like to do, Craig, you have a book you've written that's pretty amazing, the Direct Mail Solution. It's a business owner's guide to building a lead generation, sales-driven, money-making direct mail campaign. I don't know how you could not like that title, and you did this with Dan Kennedy. But help me with what's in it and what will happen, if I'm an entrepreneur or a fellow entrepreneur and I go ahead and get that book, what's that going to do?
Well, when I started to write this book, I wanted to do something more than just the 30,000 foot view. A lot of times you buy a book and they give you a great overview of a topic. And we definitely cover that with direct mail. We definitely give an overview, but I also provide all the nuts and bolts that go with it, like the tools that you actually need, the things you need to know to go and implement a campaign yourself. So I talk about how to write a sales letter. I talk about renting and segmenting a list. I talk about tracking the campaign. I talk about how you can use direct mail to build higher customer lifetime values. So it's really an A to Z book on direct mail marketing. You'll have a full understanding of how the process works and the steps you need to take in order to put a campaign together and get it out in the mail.
That's great. I did not know you wrote this book, so I just bought it and I will be reading it because the one thing that I'm going to encourage everyone to do, almost matter of fact, I can't think of any business. Maybe you can help me with that, Craig. That direct mail, you shouldn't at least test, and it's likely that it's going to have some huge success. But like all of marketing, you've got to make sure you make the investment in yourself so that you understand and can have that conversation. And what I love about your book is that you've gone ahead and really kind of laid out that whole foundation from all the experience you've had.
Right. Yeah, it's an A to Z, it helps you from start to finish.
Well, let's go to the next segment, which is resources. And here, let me pull up your website, Craig, and tell our fellow entrepreneurs what they're going to find at Simpson-direct.com.
Well, I've got a number of things. I've got some information products there. I've got my book there, newsletter, but I also have a blog on there, and I've got, I don't know how many posts, maybe close to 100 where every week or every other week I'm posting an article about direct mail marketing and in business general too, just, great, insightful, useful information that you can apply to your business. So not only can you be educated about direct mail there, but you'll get, there are other tips too with time management. I talk about a little bit of everything. So you'll find my blog, you'll find resources that you can purchase if you'd like to study more, and just more information about what I do at Simpson Direct is on there as well.
And how would they best reach out to you?
So on my website, it's probably the best way. I've got a contact form, and you just simply fill that out, send it to me, and I get it, and then I can respond. But really, there's that, or I've got my phone number that's on the website. You can call my office, and someone will answer and can help you out too.
Well, I love the tagline, turning mail into money. So that's great. Let me go to the next segment. I want to really kind of pull together what Craig talked about, and these are the key takeaways. And I'm looking at my notes, and I've got kind of 5 big ones. Number 1, marketing is a science. And this is one that you ignore at your own peril, because it's so easy to get caught up in fancy campaigns and this looks better and going with your gut. And I got to tell you, with my team, we no longer debate marketing anymore. I mean, it's so freeing because, if somebody believes passionate about something, we'll try it. Well, we're not going to spend a lot of money, but test. And every week, depending on which part of the company, I mean, we've got statistics on everything, and you can really see incrementally whether the tests are working and whether they're right or not, and how we can improve the value of what we're bringing to the marketplace. Second, Craig talked about the home run or the good base hit, and this is when you're starting any marketing campaign, whether it's direct mail or email. We talked about just going kind of the minimum viable marketing campaign, enough so you can test and make it work, and then work through the bugs so that you can have success. And so much of business, as we're all scaling up this accelerating entrepreneurial success, is no longer having the great new idea. It's making that incremental process, improvement, the systems in place to get it going. And then in the business, on the business, I don't travel as much as I used to. I used to be traveling a lot, but the main travel I do is mastermind groups, because I've just found the value of, hanging out with my fellow peers like Craig, entrepreneurs. And AES Nation is all about a virtual one, and you can get a lot of learning through what we're doing here. But go to the live events. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a little weird, and many of your friends, you can't really have the same conversations that Craig and I can have. And each time we have these, there's just so much value created. Time management, boy, being successful on purpose, segmenting your business and what you want to achieve, clarity of purpose, and then scheduling it. And then direct mail. Boy, it's a $46 billion business. I'm a big believer in free markets. If people are investing $46 billion, there's only one reason: it works. Definitely, you want to go to aesnation.com, download the transcript of the interview Craig and I had today. Go to his website, buy his book, get the foundation, sign up for the blog, and above all, your future clients, they're counting on you. You need to reach them, and this is one of the most effective tools. Craig, thank you again, and we wish everyone the best of success.
Exceptional, remarkable breakthroughs. AESNation.com.